Man, that song motivates me all the time. That beat, man, I
Oh
just love
yeah,
it.
it's exciting. It gives good energy, man.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Happy Thursday. This is Pedro De Leon.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Chihiro Kurokawa, and Pedro and I are hosts of the Beyond Stock Show. We're super amped about our guest today. His name's Thien Bui. And remember how Pedro and I, a couple weeks ago, we were talking about a really interesting amphitheater deal, and we said we wanted to talk to somebody about that? Well, Tien's our guy. So you got a real treat today. So Thien Bui is a national consultant and an energy advisor. He operates and owns firstclassutilities.com. He's a seasoned serial entrepreneur and an active investor in multiple businesses, including real estate, multifamily, and owner financing over 20 single-family homes. He also owns over a dozen personal seat licenses at Cowboys Stadium and is an investor in the Sunset venue in McKinney Amphitheater LP, also 2 hotels, and a few more income-producing assets. He's an immigrant with a deep appreciation for hard work, and he's built a thriving career over the past 15 years, driven by his passion for business. He's a dedicated family man, valuing integrity, long-term vision, and helping others achieve success through leadership and mentorship. Thien, thank you so much, and welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. When you gave me the invitation, I was really excited, and now that today is here, I'm extremely excited.
Very cool. So, as a way of background to our listeners, so you and I met a few years ago, right? We were networking with, I think it was, might have been John Montero, if I remember correctly, but
Yeah.
a multifamily investor that we both know and have invested with, and then we've just kept in touch since then, right, Tian?
Yes, that's great. Yeah, that day I think I jumped in four complexes in the Austin deal.
Got it.
So I jumped in and put in some capital there for that deal, and that's where we met.
Yeah, awesome. Well, so I love the kind of American dream story, right? Immigrants starting out from humble beginnings. So walk us through your background.
Yes, I am Vietnamese. I was born in Vietnam. We're the typical stereotype, fresh off the boat stories you guys hear. Vietnam was a war-torn country after 75, and a couple days ago, April 30th was the 50th year anniversary of the fall of Saigon. Of course, freedom, religious freedom, and just economic freedom. Freedom in general is tough in a communist country. And my parents fled Vietnam one night, and I was just a baby. I don't have much memory of it at all, 0 to none. And then we stumbled and landed in the United States, and I did everything according to the American, steps. Shihiro and Pedro, about like go to high school, graduate on time. I didn't fail any grades. Went to college, and I became a teacher, and I taught for 9 years. 9 years as a teacher, 1 year as a vice principal of a school where I was in a disciplinary department, making sure kids were well behaved all the time, and I taught in Plano East Senior High School. I stumbled on this back in 2007, 2008, when the economy was really bad. I stumbled on an online business, and which was utility service with Ambit Energy as a marketing consultant. And little by little, I grew that business up to 5-figure to a 6-figure, 7-figure business. So now it's been a true hub. Allows us to do all this, whatever you mentioned, that we just invest as a private equity. So that alone, firstclassutilities.com has been like the true chicken that lays all the eggs for me. And I use the eggs to either buy more chickens to lay more eggs.
Amazing. Pedro, that really speaks to us as immigrants, yeah?
Absolutely, man. I love that, man. I didn't realize I was on mute, but yeah, I love this. I love the story, So, it's always great to hear people saying like, "Hey, I started from the bottom, work my way up," or immigrants, right? Just like we are, and work our way up to where we want to be, right? Like the American dream, so to speak, right? So, definitely, man. Kudos to you, man.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate it. And a little funny story, which is a true story, when people say, you hit rock bottom. I didn't hit rock bottom. I was down to $35 left to my name. So there's a small little cushion. If I did fall, I fell on $35. And that's all I had as an asset. So if you ever Google what Team was worth years ago, it was like maybe $35 and a chunk of change. No.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very impressive. And what I like a lot as as an investing nerd, what I love about your story, Tien, is a lot of people will do well professionally, like you have, but they don't necessarily have that investing mindset, whereas you do, right? So you've done well, you've worked hard, and you have cash flow, but then you've also been intent on investing that in private offerings to create some sort of legacy for your children. So that I think is a really important piece that a lot of high income earners are missing from their lives.
Very true. I don't know if I share with you the story about it, but I had to cut coupons when newspaper was a thing. Just 10 cents save on yogurt. I cut just any type of 30 cents coupons, and they could have the Sunday newspapers and our entertainment book. And I realized at the moment there that every day I worked just to survive. And I bumped into this man, and I had lunch with him yesterday. His name is John Batone. And he said one thing, he said, Tien, I know you're working just to save money and survive, but learn to give your dollar a job so that you don't have to work. And it hit hard, especially it won't resonate to you unless you don't have money, unless you're really like broke, poor, and then all this other things you hear about money can't buy happiness and money can't doesn't make you whatever it might be, right? Money did buy me happiness because being broke didn't buy me happiness either. And I just learned at the time my car was about to get towed. I couldn't get pay for my rent at an apartment. It was very stressful. And I think what you just said, Chihiro, resonated as well for all the listeners out there. What saving money is cool, it's good. It'll make you go on to the next paycheck. But if you get a chance to even $1 or 50 cents, whatever amount, to turn into $1.10 or $1.20, or even $1.05, like 5% return, and compound effect will naturally hit.
Right.
And that alone is a miracle of the world. And it will take some time. It took me about, I'll say between 10 to 15 years to be where I am today. But it was day in and day out grind, rejections. People won't understand you. You're going to feel alone. You're going to just experience what true entrepreneurs experience. Chihiro, Pedro?
Yeah. I want to add, something that you said about, it took you 10 or 15 years, right? A lot of people don't understand it. So for most of us, right, we grew up, our parents telling us, like you mentioned before earlier, like go to school, save your money or so. And we have to reprogram our mindset, making that dollar work for you. And it was just very difficult for me. It took me about a decade to understand that, so absolutely. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, we all got to break the generational curse, man.
Absolutely.
I totally understand what you mentioned, Pedro. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us about the first LP investment that you did. What was it, and how hard was it to take that jump? Because that first deal was scary. I remember that still when I did that the first time.
In the real estate section, or was in the real estate? Yes. It was out of a conversation, and like you mentioned about networking, when you sit at a table with real forward-thinking, true high-level entrepreneurs, the conversation is extremely different. They don't talk about Netflix or sit and complain or vent. It's a different vibe. And one person said to me one time, I said, Tien, you've been servicing with firstclassutilities.com. You've been servicing apartments all these years. Why don't you think of owning them? And I said, well, that's so true. Because the first million in Ambit came in about 6.5 years. The second million came much faster, in like 3, and the third million came. And then they said about tax deferment and all these lingo that you didn't understand as an LP at the time. And then I start Googling, hey, apartment investing, and then there was a networking event, and I went to it, didn't know anybody, not even a licking soul, and I asked them about it, and I went to total maybe 7 or 8 of them. Yeah. And I said, well, right now, let's start out with 50,000 on a deal, which is accredited investors. And then, Tien, you have a little bit more capital. Why don't you put in X amount, and 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then, after about a year, I'm involved in 10 complexes. And So it was just waiting for the return, the full cycle to happen, which has not happened in any of them yet. But I think the tax benefit we can already see in the first couple of years, so that was a big plus. The return during, at least for me right now, and Shihiro, and all those who are investing into or know about the apartment industry, interest rates were a massive factor. And I kind of restructured and shook the apartment investment industry a little bit. And some of them, of course, did well, and I'm very happy for them. And some of them are still kind of going through the storm. So there's going to be different for everyone, a different type of investment. So that's kind of, and it is scary, Shihiro. It is scary transferring that $50,000 check first, and then even 100,000 and 120,000, and you just never know where it's going to go. And even during the transfer, even though you have all this wire, you wonder, unless you get confirmation, if it went to somewhere in China, India, like,
Right.
Africa, somewhere. But essentially, we hope that all the hard work we put into every dollar, there will be some return and on it. And real estate has been a great one in general.
I have a question. So in regards of that, as far as even though you mentioned it was a little bit scary cutting your first check, what was the value proposition that said, hey, I'm gonna give it a go and make this investment? What was their value proposition?
The value proposition, it kind of stemmed already from my experience in the apartment world.
Okay.
I serviced them day in and day out. We knew there was a demand. There was an expense on the utilities for, of course, first class utility, like internet, energy, rent, insurance. There's a demand there. There's one other factor I wanted to grab, was the rent. And if I can grab part of that rent, even a sliver of it. And a lot of apartments are in the millions of dollars, some of them like 30 million, 40 million. Not a lot of people have that capital just laying around to invest. So when we hear about syndication, I have to understand about it. So I went in as an LP. An LP is limited partner, where it's a part owner, very passive, just to understand more of the industry, which I was very new to. Yeah. And I'm learning a lot still.
So for our listeners who may not be familiar with syndication, what Thien's talking about is an operator might get an apartment deal under contract, and let's say they need $10 million as a down payment to buy that. Well, they're not going to bring 10 million all from their own pocketbook. They might bring 2 of it, and then 8 million of it they're going to raise from investors like me or Pedro or Thien. So Thien invested in a deal like that to begin with, and then multiplied that by doing multiple other deals thereafter.
Yes, and then as of today, I invested in 1,972 doors. So I don't know how that equates to, but as long as those doors are filled with actual human beings living there and they're paying their rent, I hope to get a minor sliver of that.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Right. And then the profits that come from the eventual sale of those apartments flowed through to you as well. So you get your prorated share, depending on how much you invested. That prorated share of profits comes to you, Thien, right?
Yes, I think if anyone here will be really good at it, we should Shihiro. He'll be like the pro and expert on the syndication and understanding the structure of it and how anyone could benefit and value. My role I play is more of an LP as a private equity investor to all these deals.
So let's get to what we were really excited about, which is personal seat licenses. So the first deal you did was Cowboys Stadium. So tell us about how you heard about that, how you got involved, and that whole process. Walk us through that.
Yes. Before I start, I'm going to say a quote, and I think a lot of people hear and know it. And I'll start with this quote, and I'll develop on it. Birds of the same feather flock together. Entrepreneurs just will be always entrepreneurs. The real ones, not the entrepreneurs, but hang out with those who are forward-thinking, money-driven individual. And again, it was so funny. I was hanging out with John Matone again, because his sister used to teach with me at Plano East, and he knew I quit my job as a teacher, and I'm going to go into the entrepreneurial lifestyle. That's going to be a tough one. And he owns seats in the Cowboys Stadium. And out of the blue, it's a very whisper. He says to Thien that with all the capital you have, you should own some too. You can, treat your tenants and treat your executives and take your family out and use it as a business expense. So that's what we heard. First time I heard about it, I didn't know there was such thing. until he sat down. He showed me these seats I own. These are what I put on StubHub and SeatGeek and X, Y, and the cash flow was very easy to understand. So those who understand just a single family home, it works exactly same principle. First, buy the home, and then when a tenant sits in it or sleeps in it or stays in there, and they pay you rent. That's mainly it. And then of course you have your expenses called taxes and insurance on that home as the owner, but the tenant can pay for it. The renters can pay for it. So that same idea, and then he didn't say much more. That same night, I couldn't shake it out of my head, and I Googled, how do I own seats in the Cowboy Stadium? And this website came up, and I grilled this guy down named Greg. I don't know his last name, but I called him up and I asked him a ton of questions. I repeat some of the questions, see if he answered differently. And then that's when we first bought our first 4 of them. And I'm not a tax strategist or even a CPA, so this is not financial advice here. But you can use it as a tax, however you want to use. Yeah, whatever that word is, but it can help with your taxes on it if you're really legitimately buying it for a business expense.
Got it. So here's my first question about this deal, Thien, is did you go to the Taylor Swift Eras tour?
Oh no, I did. I did have the link for it though. Oh my goodness, I wish I would have gone. I'm not a Swiftie, but I heard that she's a great entertainer.
So you didn't go, but then you made money because you sold those tickets then.
Yeah, anything that happened inside the stadium, you have first, as owners, we have first right to buy them, and then you can take the code. It goes for even monster trucks, college games, anything. The email as owners, they'll send you email first as an owner, purchase them, and then before it goes public. So I bought 4, and then I think the return was just incredible. And I took the amount and I bought another 4. And the guy, he said, I own 7. Why buy 4 once you buy the rest of them? And I bought the whole row there in section 129. And then after that year, they won. They hit the playoffs. And then when they hit the playoffs, just more revenue instead of just. And I bought more chickens, essentially. That idea was, you have these chickens. And then I just, anywhere at the same section, I just continue buying and buying more because there's no really operational work. You won't get calls for toilet leaks. You won't get calls for windows. You don't have to, hunt people down. And I think that model alone was really good. The only thing, the downside about it, and I'm going to show some scars, okay? The only downside about it is that the licensing fee has to be paid every single year. And Jerry Jones take it. We'll call it a face value. And if you don't go or not, they're very minimal price. Of course, you always want a 2x or 3x the amount as you sell them on StubHub or SeatGeek. And for all those who are watching, if you're ever watching a Cowboys game, and you're sitting on the chair, there is an owner that owns them. It's just not Jerry. So I want you to know someone's getting that money that you bought on StubHub or SeatGeek for.
So how many seats do you have right now?
13 seats. Yeah.
13 seats.
And I just sold 6 of them. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
So we're back to 7. That's correct.
Got it.
Yeah. What is the valuation? I guess you can say, right, when you sell the seats, like what is per seat? How much more can you sell it percentage wise? You don't have to give.
Yeah, usually you want to put them on exactly 100%. You double you multiply that by 2, whatever price value, you multiply that by 2, and you sell them on it for every single game. They're called the face value of the ticket. Then they print out an actual invoice for you to let you know on them. And then, so just say, for example, the seat's 200, you post it for 400. And then multiply that times 8 or 10 games times 13. So that's your margin on it. So that's, of course, I have 13 seats on them. And then that's how the math works out. And every year that chicken just spits out more. And it doesn't have to be just Cowboy games. There's a Post Malone concert coming up on that for all the Post Malone fans out there, knowing that you're sitting in there, you're paying some owner the right to those to sit there.
Now, how do you do? I think what Pedro was asking is, how do you do valuation on the seat itself? Because you just sold some seats.
Oh, I see what you mean. You mean not the ticket, but the actual seats itself.
You just sold some of your licenses, right? So
yeah.
how did you determine what to sell them for?
One, you want to know what you bought them for. So go back to your, the documents that's there. Everything's really well documented. You always want to either 10%, 20% return, ROI. Same formula, multiply by 12, divided by what you put in. So use that same formula to put it out there. So if it's at 10,000, sell it for 12,000. If it's at 15,000, so we walked out for, on the seats alone, I think over 20, north of 20%.
Got it. So your asking price was 20% more than you paid for them, and that's what you got?
Yes, exactly. And then because he was a good friend, we gave him a deal. If not, we would have just try to shoot for 30.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. And then now your next personal seat license type of project is just broke ground a couple weeks ago, right? And I saw on
in your
social
backyard,
media,
yes, Shihiro, right in your backyard.
and you were hanging out with Troy Aikman as a part of this project. So tell us what this is and what you're investing in.
Yes. So, firstclassutilities.com. I have to admit, I thank that so much. With Ambit Energy, the energy company itself, as we build it, gives us residual income, commission. And usually we take that and we leave it in a hub. Instead of letting it die, we always look for investing. So we're essentially private equity investor. And as that accumulates, we even look harder to defer taxes, especially when we hear the word K1, depreciation. Right. Those are like the lingo for us, Shihiro. So when we hear that, we knew for a fact that if we can expand to another one, a different portfolio, we wanted to diversify. So we did the apartments. We have single family homes. We have invested in 2 hotels. So what else can we do? And my wife on a kitchen table said, "Hey, there's this amphitheater being built up there. Let's look into it." And then that's what I did. I right away, when your wife says something, just kind of want to just jump on it. And I looked on it and I said, wait a minute, there's investment opportunity here. And then I called everyone. No one picked up. I sent an email to like 9 different people. No one picked up. In other words, I'm the one kind of like, hey, here's my money. I want to invest in it. Like I was really proactive at it. Yeah. And then lo and behold, this guy named Clint Roth called back early morning. I mean, I think his time zone was different than mine for some odd reason. And I woke up and said, hey, my name is Clint Roth. I'm the sales rep. And I grilled him with questions for 2 or 3 days. And then I learned, what I learned about this was that my experience from the cowboys seat spills into this entertainment world. And then if I can ask you a question and you can answer it, this is just a general idea to jump into the business. When John asked me, Thien, what's going to put the NFL out of business? I don't know. Not even COVID. There were still games played with no fans on it, but there was still moving part. It was just a rare one. And then I asked myself, what's going to put the music industry out of business? Ever since there was civilization, they loved music already, from the tribes all the way to the community and then there's always going to be the next Post Malone, next Taylor Swift, the next, Brooks and Dunn, country music. And anywhere there's good songs, fans have to meet with the artist. And what that place usually does is that creates a place. And if I could just own a spot where the fans can sit and enjoy and be an entertainment space, we knew it was going to right away. But the cherry on top was that once you own it, there's no annual fee and there's no commission upfront fees or things like, licensing fees anymore. You just own it for life. And that's what we wanted to do when we created that will or when we buy it underneath the trust, that not even our kids can sell it. So unless the stadium blows up and there's like a massive tornado, God forbid that never happens. But yeah, we want that to perpetuate. We knew the music industry, entertainment will be a forever human innate habit that everyone's going to want to have and listen to. So we jumped on it and we put in some very substantial amount of funds for that, Shihiro.
Now, what does I know you invested in something called the Fire Pit Suite. So paint a picture for our listeners. Like, what is that? What does it look like? If I buy one of these suites for, a concert, what's the experience like?
Of course, I haven't experienced it yet, but I can definitely what we see on paper or on the rendering is it's going to be like the most bougie way of going to a concert. I've been to concerts where, you're next to sweaty people and they're
Yeah.
jumping and moving, you're all crowded, and you're next, and then it's still cool because that's a great experience of all those who've been to concerts. And sometimes it might be slow, but and there's no real estate in space.
Mm,
And sometimes you just got to stand the whole time because there's no chairs.
right.
So that's the problem. What the Sunset Amphitheater is trying to solve is there is a niche. They went to McKinney because it's such a high growing, affluent area. And then again, and I'm not trying to butt up Shihiro, but that's his backyard. These are the type of people they're attracting in there. They're next to the PGA, next to the Universal Studios. There's an airport. It's right off the Highway 75 and 121. So in all that area there's these single family homes that are north of $500,000 and up. So they know there's a lot of demand and they want to cater to that. So what essentially it does is you buy truly a fire pit, and then you put chairs around it, and then food can come to you, and you can watch your artist. Just say you love country music, your favorite country music artist. You watch them, and then you're sipping there, and then there's space for you to enjoy your time with your family and friends. And that little square 12 feet by 8 feet or 16 feet by whatever size is yours, and you own that real estate. And they give you a K1, this appreciation and everything as well. So they did say they triple net it, but I know triple net means you have to pay taxes and insurance. I think that the idea of it is same thing as a triple net. Mm-hmm.
What is the projection as far as concerts going to be happening per year at the amphitheater?
I'm extremely excited to share with you this information. It originally was at 52. In other words, almost 2 a week, but they had it covered. Of course, it's great. And they didn't have a heating system. In other words, for the month of November, December, and January, during the cold months, really there won't be any venues or an event happening. But right now, the fact that they incorporated a heating system, there will be concerts for November, December as well. So they said about 71 events happening there throughout the year. Usually Thursday, Friday, Saturday are the 3 days. And what kind of validate, because I have trust issues. I don't know if you guys do, but I do. I like to validate the details, even the details. I have the details that have details. So they say we're connected with Live Nation. I'm just like, okay, if you guys are going to say that, let me check it out. And I went to the guy. I met him. The guy, I told him, Live Nation, you guys associated with Live. He goes, yeah, we're the one that sets up the tours. Like,
oh, wow.
So that alone, I shook his hand, spoke to him on why they did it. He goes, boy, yeah, there's no other better space than what venue is trying to build. And it's such a new thing for the community. So those who are taking risks like myself, who are jumping in, if it works, great. But if it doesn't, remember, it's an investment. It could fail as well. So if it does work, great. I hope it does. I want to keep an optimistic, good, positive spirit. And if it doesn't, man, at least I tried.
Yeah, I like that. Take that risk, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, spoken like a true investor, right? But back to the really fundamentals, right? Will AI or any other technology, virtual reality, will that disrupt live music? I don't think so. And you don't think so either. And then same with Cowboy Stadium, right? Like people will pay for live sports and watch it because there's something innately entertaining about that is different from watching things on a screen. So I love this investment, and I love that they set it up in this way so that individual investors and business owners, entrepreneurs like yourself can get a piece of the action.
Yes. And think this though, if you understand human nature, if you just understand that we're social beings by nature and we desire to know. So as community and families and stuff like that, we want to make sure as we socialize, we develop more and better. And entertainment's a great place to socialize, meet, and enjoy.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that I want to add is for the audience to understand, right, is that when you mentioned you made the decision to invest on the amphitheater in McKinney, your background is based on the Cowboys, buying the seats there. And that's really important, right? As you start diversifying your portfolio or going into something else and a different industry, but still the same asset class, as you can say, the experience is really important, right? So never feel, I'm sure you probably ask other people who have done it before and say, hey, how do you do this? Because I want to make sure that I'm covering my bases before I'm, cut this big check.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, Tien, what's your advice for somebody like you who has done well in business or somehow has figured out through effort to generate a good income for themselves, right? And to take that step into investing into private offerings like you did. What's your advice to those people?
Yeah, I have three that it's just it's a must. I just got it's a must, no matter what. You only want to talk to those who've been there. Don't take advice from don't take medical advice from a mechanic ever. Don't ever do that. And don't take mechanical advice from a doctor. Just vice versa. You want to sit in the table, be in the room with all those who've walked the path. And if they paint it so much peaches and cream, and you run, you want to run. Like if you're asking for advice, run fast, because in the real world, investment is not an always uphill battle. It's an uphill battle. It's not where it's just a walk in the park and sunshines and rainbow. It's truly an uphill battle constantly against the economy, the world, and people. So that's one. You want to talk to someone who's been there. And the more experienced they are, gauge their integrity, their confidence, their if this sounds salesy, don't do it. They're trying to really get you into, because of course they might have a commission there involved. There's some benefit to them on it, but if they truly genuinely like you and push you and feel like they're not selling you anything, they're just sharing their experience, that's truly a gauge. And number two, the second, so I learned it from Jerry, was the second one is analyze the systems. Because if the investment is really good and the system's bad, your investment is going to suck. It's going to be horrible. Can you show me the systems? How does the customer buy? What are they getting? And how do I get a piece of transaction lands to your bank account? So as the system follow through, if they don't have a back office, good IT system, or even a department system, if it's just them, a one-man show, I can't put, a substantial amount of money over a man who's doing everything, right? That's a good sign that it's still too new to it. And the third is the people. Who is he being associated with? Does he have an accountant, lawyer, sales rep, management, everything? Who is his circle? And then if you don't know his circle, it's kind of like a dad being embarrassed to show his kids his friends. So if you're embarrassed to show your kids to your friends, you mean you got the wrong friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just good tell.
Yeah.
And then if you're vice versa, but if I'm so happy, hey, I want my family, wife and family, kids to really hang out with this other family because they share the same core values. There will be some challenges just through life in general, but as long as they share the same core values and different talents, I think it's a great area to be in. So the vice versa, if they can introduce them the partner, and this is my partner, or this is my accountant, or this is my X, Y, and Z, it's a great sign, the people behind it. And if they're kind of like shady, goes, no, we can't put him on FaceTime or whatever, or we can't do this, we can't do that, or he's too busy. And communications suck because after a month, you're putting out X amount of money, just say 50,000. After a month, it's radio silence, and you text them and call them and they don't reply back, and there's no office you can talk to. In other words, your money's gone. Yeah, it went to limbo. Yeah.
This is a great advice, not just for those that are looking to invest, but also for those that are raising capital.
Yeah.
Because it's not rainbow and sunshine when you're raising capital. I'm sure Shahira knows, and you can tell the stories, So absolutely, thank you so much for giving us that advice.
Yeah, I think about learning about raising capital. I haven't raised capital, but what I sense is a lot of people are looking to deploy their asset, some of their money, and they're trying to find ways to do it. And I think after that, the human connection, as long as it's strong, genuine, with high integrity, and it's going to be lasting a long time, naturally that transaction is going to happen.
Right.
Yeah, and it's a small little group, but it's there's millions of millionaires. You just got to find that group of people, or even thousands of millionaires there's out there. People with six figures that are making it, and even just in a neighborhood that you kind of see it. They all have, I don't know if they all, but I can definitely say if they have disposable income trying to invest, educate them, show them that there's a way for their money to work harder versus be stuck in like 0.01% in savings in Bank of America or something,
Right.
Yeah, so
which is why we have the podcast. We're building this community. So be on stocks, right? So absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's our mission.
That's our mission.
That's good. That's good. And I want to support it. I want to help market it and everything for you guys. And anything I can do to help, I want to be here for that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Pedro.
All right, Pedro. You want to take us out, brother?
Absolutely. So here, hold on. Give me a second here. I'm going to put this right here. So for those guys that are actually looking to, you mentioned energy, you broke energy or energy broker, then definitely reach out. Firstclassutilities.com. Thank you so much for those that have been watching, man. We had a lot of viewers. We got some comments, for those that looking to be part of a community like what Thien was talking about, then hit us up, DM us on social media. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, and of course YouTube, right? So, or send us or if you know us, hit us up in person. So, and we're having an event coming up on May 29th in McKinney. So join us, right? And we'll send you the link to you guys. Other than that, guys, thank you so much. Stay tuned for the next show. Anything you got, questions you have, let us know. Have a great weekend and take care.